Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Now today I'm going to be starting to show you my collection of Beatles EPs. So I've done the albums and I've done pretty much all of my singles, and I'm now moving on to the EPs. So there is actually light at the end of the tunnel for me showing my Beatles collection. There won't be too many more videos now, apart from updates obviously. But anyway, I'll just get straight into the video. So the very first one I've got came out in 1963 on the Polydor label, and it's Tony Sheridan with the Beatles. And there was an American album which had a similar cover to this. It was the same kind of turquoise colour, and they had the Tony Sheridan tracks on. But anyway, this has 4 tracks. It's got My Bonnie, Cry for a Shadow, The Saints, and Why. And My Bonnie and Cry for a Shadow, I believe, are both their singles. And here is the back of the sleeve. It's in pretty good condition. So there we go. This is the first Beatles EP to be released in the UK. And here is the record label. The record, if you look at the perimeter text, is actually made in Germany. This is side 1, and here is side 2. Right, next up is probably the biggest selling Beatles EP of all time, and that is Twist and Shout. And this also came out in 1963, about 6 months or so after the release of Please Please Me, and it was a huge seller, Twist and Shout. Millions of copies, but anyway, this is the one I've got the most copies of, and there's a few interesting variations, so I'll start showing them. So here's the very first one, with the iconic photo of the Beatles jumping over the wall there, which is one of my favourite Beatles photos. And if we look at the back of the sleeve, this is quite a nice example actually. It's got Twist and Shout, A Taste of Honey, Do You Want to Know a Secret, and There's a Place. So 4 good tracks from the Please Please Me album. And it's got a little write up there by Tony Barrow. And the sleeve is made by Goward, as in Goward and Lofthouse Limited. Now this is a nice original copy of the EP. Now you'll notice that it hasn't got the sold in the UK text on the centre of the label, and the perimeter text begins with the Parlophone Company Limited. And here's side 2. And the text code on this copy is KT. Now I'll try not to go into this kind of detail for the entire video, but I'll just show you this variation here. So if we look at the information up on this copy, you'll notice that the BM, McCullico, or whatever that says, and Ambassador, those 3 lines are very much aligned. However, on this copy, hopefully you'll be able to see that the BMNCB line is now further to the right, so that it's not in line with these other 2 lines here. So that's just an example of the variations you can get. So here's the rest of this second copy here, which is identical to the first one in every other way. And here's my next copy, which is just a duplicate of the very first copy that I showed you. This next one is also a duplicate. Now here's a third copy of the Twist and Shout EP, and if you look at the information over here now, you'll hopefully be able to see that all 4 lines are now aligned with each other, so that there isn't anything over on the right here. They're all nice and in line with each other. And this is quite a nice copy overall, this particular one. Here's side 2. Quite a nice label there. Now if we look on this copy, this is very much the same as all the other copies I've shown you in that it's got the same font. However, the next copy I'm about to show you is going to have a very different font. So the best place to see it is on the information here. So let's give you a second to have a look at that. Okay, and here's what it looks like on this next copy. So the font here is a little bit thinner than the previous font. I'm sure you can see it's also got a name written on the label there. So that's just an interesting little variation. And that copy I just showed you there was a variation B of the first pressing with a different font. And this is just a copy without the centre in, so that one's not very good. But here's my next proper copy. So if we look at this one, there's just something I like to point out so I can show you what the next variation is. Now this one's a little bit easier to spot. Now all this information here is going to be moved about a centimetre up on the label. So the best way to see the change is to look where at the Sheridan line there. That is in line with the word "the" in the perimeter text. However, on the next variation it'll be next to the word "manufacturer" up there. And here is that next copy. So hopefully you'll be able to see Sheridan is now next to the beginning of manufacturer there, rather than the, which it was on the previous copy here. And this next copy is just the same as the last one I showed you, where the Sheridan line is in line with the word manufacturer, except here the Sheridan, BM, McCulloch Co and Ambassador lines are not aligned with each other anymore. So the top two lines have gone back to being over to the right there. Now this next copy is probably my favourite one, and I'll show you why. Because this is actually a very rare variation of this EP which has a spelling error on the label, so I would recommend that you keep a lookout for this. It's on side 2, track 1. Now, if you look at the song "Do You Want to Know a Secret," rather than having "Do you want to know a secret," it has "Do you want a know a secret?" And obviously that's not the proper name of the song, so if you find a copy with this rare spelling error on, I would very much recommend that you pick it up. Now on this last copy that I've got, there is actually a significant difference. This is a later pressing of Twist and Shout. And if we look at the label here, we can see that first of all there's kind of a ring on the centre there, and also the font and everything is just totally different. But also if we look, it's got EMI Records Limited there, which tells you that this is a 70s press and not a 60s press, because they had the Parlophone Company Limited. And here's side 2. Now before I move on to the next EP, I'd just like to backtrack for a second to show you a few different cover variations that you can get for this EP. So this is the very first one that I showed you. So if we look at the flip back, we can see that it's got kind of straight top and a straight diagonal bit there. Whereas on a lot of other covers, if we look, it's actually not straight because it's got a curve there going along rather than just a straight diagonal line there. And the last thing is just the actual size of the flip backs. So if we look at this flip back down here, this is the smallest one I've got, and then it gets slightly bigger. I'll just put them side by side so you can see them, and then gets bigger still, and then very big, and then even larger than that. So hopefully you'll be able to see there that there are just so many different variations of both the cover and the record out there to find. I haven't got anywhere near all of them, I've just got a small collection of them. Okay, so this is the last EP I'll be covering for this video, and it won't be in as much detail as the Twist and Shout one was. So anyway, this is the Beatles Hits, which is their third EP in the UK. And the tracks on it were For Me to You, Thank You Girl, Please Please Me, and Love Me Do. And the front cover looks as though it's from the same photo shoot as the one on the Introducing the Beatles album. And here's the back of the EP. Again with a write-up by Tony Barrow, and this copy is printed by Sheridan Lofthouse. And here's the actual single, the EP. Now here's the very first pressing. There are a couple of things to note about this. First of all, it doesn't have the sold in the UK text on because it came out in 1963. But importantly, nowhere on the label does it say recording first published 1963. Now only the very first pressings don't have that written on the label, because all subsequent pressings will, as you'll see in a moment. And the perimeter text begins with the Parlophone Company Limited. And here is side 2 with an MKT tax code on the middle there. Now this next copy is a second pressing of the EP, and I'll show you what this one looks like. So on this copy, you'll be able to see that over here it now does have recording first published 1963 written on the label, which the last one didn't. But apart from that, it's the same in every other way. There's side 2. Now this next copy here has a cover which wasn't made by Sheridan Lofthouse Limited, but by a different factory, and it's not Ernest J. Day & Co. But if you look down here, you'll be able to see the letters BUPR, which I believe stands for Buckland Printers. So this one isn't Sheridan Lofthouse, but the record is rather similar, apart from one or two minor variations. Still got the recording first published on, except this one's got a KT tax code rather than an MKT tax code. And to be honest, there isn't really much difference between these next couple of copies. However, for this last copy there is a significant difference, and that this is a 70s reissue, much like the version of the Twist and Shout EP I showed you earlier. So there's the back, which is a lot whiter than the others, with it being a bit newer. And here is the vinyl, and interestingly, this is actually a solid centre copy of the EP, and it's got the EMI Records perimeter text. And there's side 2. Okay, so that's the end of today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing these EPs, and I'll see you all next time.